I'm Dr. Tegelberg. I teach in the Communication Studies Department.
Small talk. Small talk. Small talk. Small talk. Small talk.
My name is Dr. Matthew Tegelberg. I teach in the Communication and Multimedia Studies Department on the communication side of things. By number, it would be 3K03, Media Audiences and Effects, 4P03, Social Activism in the Media, and 4N03, News Analysis, Theory and Practice. I just finished my PhD in September of 2012. I did it in Cultural Studies at Trent University. And it was, my research there focused on tourism, and particularly like tourist media, different kinds of tourist media, and how indigenous people are represented in like promotional media for tourism. So I looked at kind of the history of how first travel literature represented indigenous people. Then, I'm sorry, I should have said I was focusing specifically on Guatemala and Mayan indigenous culture and tourism around that. And so I looked at like sort of how early travelers, like the people who discovered Maya culture, wrote about and thought about, represented these people. And then kind of like how guidebooks and like traditional forms of media looked at it. So journalism, travel journalism was sort of the broad umbrella term that I was using. And then finally like how digital media is kind of revolutionizing the relationship, like representation in these kinds of contexts, because local people can actually create their own media. They have access to, whether it's through an internet cafe or through their mobile phone, they have access to like these social media platforms where they can actually create their own website for tourism. So I was sort of saying like there's been this whole history of frustration about how local people are represented in the context of tourism, and then now there's a way that they can actually write back and create their own forms of media, and they often sometimes draw on the way they've been represented to represent themselves, and other times they create these new narratives. So I was really interested in that. But the other one has been on climate change and how journalists, that's why I'm teaching news analysis courses, so like how these big climate change summits that have been going on every year to no real big effect, because what they've been trying to do is like replace the Kyoto Protocol with a new set of rules governing kind of how much emissions nations put into the atmosphere. And this is a big concern, right, because the climate's getting warmer, global climate. And so I've been studying like how journalists go to these events, kind of converge upon these events and cover them. And I'm part of this network, we're called Media Climate, and there's 19 of us all from a different country, so I'm like the Canadian representative. So there's these summits where we study like how the journalists and politicians and everyone comes together, and kind of how those events are covered in real time. And then we have these summits as researchers where we study the summits at our little mini conference thing, right? If I were to be able to sit down and chat with one person, it would be really fun to talk to Marshall McLuhan. What a guy. Like, he was thinking about all this stuff that we're talking about now in the 60s, and it would just been so incredible to have a chance to just, I don't know, pick his brain, see what he would have had to say. And so, yeah, one of the people that's always inspired me in my classes and my research and everything else.
Small talk. Small talk. Small talk. Small talk. Small talk.
I don't know if that should go in the video.